What's up, everyone? This is Jalen Phillips of the Miami Dolphins, and you're watching South Beach Sports. Make sure to subscribe and turn on post notifications to never miss a video. Click the links down below to stay connected on our other platforms. Fins up, baby.
What's going on, everyone? This is Luke from South Beach Sports, and in today's video, we'll be previewing the Miami Dolphins versus Cincinnati Bengals Week 3 preseason matchup, which will take place in Cincinnati at 4 p.m. this Sunday. Now, this is the nationally televised preseason game, and this is pretty much because of Joe Burrow. He is making his preseason debut, and this will obviously be the first time that we as fans really get to see what Joe Burrow looks like in some NFL game action ever since his torn ACL injury he suffered in the 2020 regular season. I think a lot of people will also be tuning in to watch how Jamar Chase rebounds from his lackluster Week 2 preseason performance, in which he dropped, I think, 3 passes. So a lot of people will be tuning in to watch the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase connection and to see how those fusion of players mesh. So in today's preview video, we'll be focusing a lot more on the Dolphins because this is a Miami-based sports channel. I'll be breaking down the things that I'll be watching and some of the positional battles that you guys should watch for as well. I'll touch into some of the positional battles of the Bengals, but I'm not really going to go super in depth about it because, like I said, it's a Miami-based sports channel. So I'll definitely be having more of a focus on the Dolphins in this video. Like Jalen Phillips said in the intro, make sure to like and subscribe. We are about 170 subscribers away from 1,000, and that's obviously a huge goal for this channel. So if you like Dolphins content and if you like other Miami sports content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you do not miss a single video. Also, go ahead and comment down below some of your predictions for this upcoming preseason matchup and which players you're excited to watch. So I'll be going position by position for Miami and just breaking down the positional battles and which players I think will end up making the 53-man roster. So at quarterback, the two-deep lineup of Tua Tagovailoa and Jacoby Brissett is 100% confirmed and just completely locked up. I am curious to see how Reed Snead will play on Sunday because I'm not sure if Miami will opt to take 2 or 3 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster. If the Dolphins choose to only run 2 quarterbacks in their active roster, I think we could see Reed Snead on the practice squad. So that's definitely something to watch out for. At the running back position, the 3-deep lineup of Myles Gaskin, Savon Ahmed, and Malcolm Brown is pretty much all the way locked up. But I do think that Miami will end up taking a 4th running back. That running back will likely either be Patrick Laird or Garrett Dokes. And there's an argument to be made for both players. For Patrick Laird, he obviously has experience in Miami. This is going to be his 3rd season. He's shown that he's fairly productive in the passing game. With Garrett Dokes, he's a rookie, a 7th round pick, and I think he has a little bit more of an upside. What I think will happen personally is that the Dolphins will opt for experience in Patrick Laird, as like I said, this will be his 3rd season in Miami, and he does have more experience as a pass blocker and as a receiver out of the backfield. Now at the wide receiver position, there is definitely some argument to be made for a lot of different players. The Dolphins already cut Robert Foster and Isaiah Ford, 2 players who were vying for a roster spot this past week. So there are some still guys that I would consider to be on the roster bubble. A lot of people are assuming that the 6th-man lineup or the 6th-deep lineup is already set in stone and confirmed, and that lineup obviously is Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller, Matt Collins, Albert Wilson, and Shakeem Grant. I'm not 100% sure that Shakeem Grant will end up being on the active 53-man roster. The Dolphins might opt to use Grant as trade bait to possibly acquire an offensive tackle, which is a more pressing need for them. I also am curious to see what the Dolphins will end up doing with Kirk Merritt. He has been one of the most impressive receivers over the course of training camp. He's an undrafted receiver from Arkansas State a couple years back. So I'm not sure if the Dolphins will end up taking him on the active roster. And if they don't, I think he is almost a lock to be on the practice squad. Now at tight end, I'm pretty confident the Dolphins will end up taking 5, which is a lot for most NFL teams, but the Dolphins do love their tight ends, so it's not really surprising. They'll be taking Mike Gesicki, Adam Shaheen, Hunter Long, and Durham Smythe and Cethan Carter. Pretty confident that some people are saying that Cethan Carter is on the roster bubble, but that does surprise me a little bit considering Carter is a very phenomenal special teams player, and Brian Flores and the Dolphins always just keep on pushing the notion of how important special teams is for them. So I do not think that the Dolphins will end up getting rid of one of their most important special teams contributors. And here we go to the trenches, which if I were you guys, I would watch the trenches very carefully, both on the offensive side and the defensive side this upcoming Sunday. I'll get into a little bit more of the defensive line matchups against the Bengals a little bit later, but now I'm going to focus on the offensive line. Now I think the Dolphins have, I would say, 8 locks on that offensive line in Michael Dieter, Solomon Kinley, Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg, Jesse Davis, and I'll throw in Matt Skura in that. I think some people disagree that Skura is a lock, but considering that Michael Dieter is pretty inexperienced at center, I think the Dolphins want to have an experienced backup in Skura next to him. Now from there are a lot of questions, and we'll see. I think this upcoming Sunday will definitely tell us a lot. I'm most excited to watch the depth of the O-line and the likes of Greg Little to see how he looks in his first NFL game appearance for the Dolphins. He's looked pretty good in practice. Same goes with Larnell Coleman. And I'm excited to see how these guys look in some preseason action. I think those 2 players are pretty safe as far as making the 53-man roster. I also think Adam Pankey is pretty safe as a guard tackle. He's versatile, and the Dolphins obviously love versatility, especially on their O-line. So I think he is a fairly safe bet. Someone that I'm also excited to watch for on Sunday is Durval Quietoso from Brazil, and he made the switch from D-line to O-line, and he actually has had a pretty solid camp, but I do not think the Dolphins will end up keeping him on the 53-man roster just because of a lack of experience. But I wouldn't be shocked to see if the Dolphins place him on the practice squad just so that they could develop him. And I think that Quietoso could be someone that could make the Dolphins 53-man roster in the next upcoming seasons. So I'll definitely be interested in watching his progression. Now I move on to the defense, and this is probably the area where I'm most psyched to watch, as the Bengals will be playing some of their starters on the O-line, and obviously Burrow will be playing, and most likely Jamar Chase, and we'll see maybe T. Higgins will play. So I'm very curious to see how the Bengals starters will look against some of the depth guys on the Dolphins defense. And at the D-line, the Dolphins run a 3-4 attack, so they're not really super D-line heavy. The locks of the D-line right now obviously are Emmanuel Ogbah, Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins, and Raekwon Davis, and I think Adam Butler is a pretty safe bet to make the 53-man roster. But looking at the D-line outside of that, there are a couple of guys that I think will vie for the final couple roster spots. Those guys being Benito Jones, Tyshawn Render, John Jenkins, and Jonathan Ledbetter. So I do not think Ledbetter or Render will end up making the 53-man roster. Ledbetter has been pretty quiet this camp. I think Benito Jones will make the 53-man roster. He was a pretty solid depth guy for Miami last season, and I think John Jenkins will also make the 53-man roster. He was brought in as a free agent, and I think the Dolphins will like to have Jenkins as a solid depth guy on their D-line. So now moving on to the linebacker unit, which in my opinion is probably the deepest unit of the Dolphins, at least on defense, and they'll probably have to make some tough decisions here. I think Sammy Guavin is probably a lock on that Dolphins defense as a backup linebacker. He's a nice pass rusher. He obviously had 4 sacks last weekend against the Falcons, and I think he pretty much locked up his spot. I also think Landon Roberts locked up his spot as a backup linebacker. He is phenomenal in the run game. He's a complete run stuffer, and pairing him next to Benardrick McKinney, you have 2 guys who are absolutely great in the run game, so I think Roberts will end up being kept. I think the Dolphins will have to make a couple tough decisions as far as Vince Beagle and Shakeem Griffin. These are 2 players who I don't think will end up making 53-man roster. With Griffin, he is a fan favorite. He's an energy guy, but he was brought in as a camp body, and I don't think the Dolphins will plan on signing him moving forward. And Vince Beagle, I think, is probably a tougher decision. Beagle was obviously very productive in that 2019 season, but he was hurt for the entire 2020 season, and he has been pretty injured throughout the 2021 training camp. So I think just pairing the 2 facts that we haven't really seen how he's fared in game action, plus his injury concerns, I do not think the Dolphins will move forward with Vince Beagle. But if they do want to keep Beagle on the roster and around the team, they could place him on the IR and have him sit throughout the 2021 season, similar to what they're doing with Lynn Bowden. Moving on to the defensive backs unit, This is another unit that's very, very deep for Miami, and I think we'll get a fair assessment of how these players will look in the NFL, as they'll be going off against some starters in Cincinnati and Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. So there are definitely some interesting matchups that you guys should look for. I think the Dolphins will end up keeping one of Trill Williams and Cre'Von LeBlanc. Personally, I see Trill Williams getting the upper hand here just because he's had such an impressive camp. Another guy who has been placed on the roster bubble by some of the media is, and I think I'm pronouncing his name right, Clayton Fijidelum. Hope I pronounced that right. But he is someone that has been on the roster bubble just because he's had a pretty quiet camp. But I don't think the Dolphins will end up cutting him just because he was the captain of that special teams unit in 2020. And obviously, like I said earlier, the Dolphins really love their special teams guys. They value the special teams unit a lot. And I don't think the Dolphins will end up cutting one of, if not the most important member of it. And I'm not really going to spend that much or any time at all on the special teams unit of Miami just because Michael Pilardi, Blake Ferguson, and Jason Sanders already have their roster spots virtually locked. I don't see any change happening there, but I will touch on a couple of the positional battles in Cincinnati that I find the most interesting. The wide receiver positional battle, especially Mike Thomas, who has found his name on the roster bubble. Very intrigued by. Thomas was a contributor on that 2020 Bengals roster. He had 13 catches for around 130 yards, and I'm sure the acquisition of Jamar Chase has something to do with his name currently being on the roster bubble. I'm also looking at the tight end position. The Bengals obviously acquired Thaddeus Moss this offseason, so I expect the battle between Mitchell Wilcox and Mason Schreck to be for the last tight end spot, and I think we'll have a good idea of who wins that battle after this weekend. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. This video is a little longer than usual, but I just wanted to give you guys a full outlook on the positional battles that you guys should watch out for this weekend. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below your predictions. With that being said, I will catch you later. Peace.